Hello, class, and welcome to our lecture series on microeconomics. And I'm your instructor, Jamal Haider. So, a quick review regarding our previous lecture. We were studying chapter number 4, and we specifically discussed the market force of supply, and then we talk about the equilibrium list. So, what we learned about the law of supply. And what is the law of supply? If the price increases, the market price increases, quantity supplied in the market increases, keeping other things equal. And then we learn about what is the supply curve. A supply curve is upward sloping. If you draw this supply schedule here, so supply curve is upward sloping. You can also see a nice graphics animation here, right? And then we talked about the movement and shift in supply curve. We talked about that. The same principle applied on our supply force as well. And what is that? If there's a change in quantity supplied and the reason is just price, we call this movement, right? And if there is a change, and what is movement? In case of movement, we don't have to make a new supply curve, shift to the left, shift to the left, or shift to the right. No. It means we are on the same point, just the position is changed. See? We don't have to make a new curve. And then what is shift? If there is an increase or decrease in quantity supplied and the reason is not price, it means we are talking about shift. So if on every price level, quantity supplied is increased, it means there is increase in supply, and that increase means shift to the right. Decrease in supply means shift to the left. And then we talk about the variables that causes these shifts. Number one, we talked about input prices, and in that input prices, we talked about that if input prices rises, what happened? Quantity supplied decreases, but that quantity supply decrease mean it would be causing shift, right? And then we talked about the drawing of supply and demand together. We talked about the equilibrium. So without making the graph, we can still find out what is the equilibrium quantity and what is the equilibrium price. We talked about that. So equilibrium price is that price which equates the quantity supplied and quantity demanded. You see, on price 2, we have equal quantity demanded and equal quantity supplied. So if we draw it here, it's like that, right? So this would be our equilibrium, and on that equilibrium, what is the quantity? Quantity is on the quantity, which is the x-axis. On the quantity is 7. On the y-axis, that would be our equilibrium price, or just P or Q, right? And then we talked about shortage and surplus. Surplus means excess supply. If the market price is above the equilibrium price, it means we have surplus. How we know that? Because on 2.5, quantity demanded is 4 and quantity supplied is 7. So you see, quantity supplied greater than quantity demanded, we have excess supply. And what is the managerial discussion here? That price ultimately will go down. You have to offer discounts or rebates or whatsoever, and you have to decrease the price in order to sell your excess quantity. And ultimately, the price would be 2 and quantity equilibrium would be 7 as well, right? It means market will go back to equilibrium eventually. And then we talked about the excess demand, which is, we call that shortage. And shortage means if the market price is below the equilibrium price, what will happen? You see, the quantity supplied, which is on the supply, is 4 and quantity demanded is 10, means quantity demanded greater than quantity supplied. We have shortage. What is the managerial decision here? Increase the price. Why? Because when you increase the price, suppliers will increase the supply, right? And because there is a shortage, buyer will buy more until you reach the equilibrium quantity. So again, price will revert back to its equilibrium, price and equilibrium quantity. And then we talked about the law of supply and demand together. So it doesn't mean that in our previous example, the price remains 2 and quantity remains 7. Yes, we know that the equilibrium, everything comes back to normal, which means comes back to equilibrium. So that doesn't mean that the price should be the same or quantity should be the same. It means we can have a new normal or we can have the old normal as well. So we talked about the law of supply and demand together. It is a claim that price of any good adjusts to bring the quantity supplied and quantity demanded into balance. And we find out that there are 3-step process. Number 1, you decide that whether this is a case of demand or supply, and then you talk about the direction, shift to the left or shift to the right, or movement upward or movement downward. And then you can find out through diagram what is the new equilibrium. Here we go. So this is the practical question. I am setting up the breakout room. So take this picture, and what you have to do, it's a group activity, and you need to discuss among yourself how this, and there are these are separate 2 questions. How these 2 affect your market for wheat flour, right? So take a picture. Meanwhile, I'm setting up the breakout room. Here we go.
Do we make each situation on a different graph or both of them?
Yeah,
on the
there are
same?
2 situations.
Oh, okay, so different 2 situations, 2 graphs, right?
Yeah, 2 graphs. Okay. So I would be coming back and resume our recording once we come back from our breakout room. Okay, guys, welcome back after our breakout room activity. So we were studying this practical question regarding the law of supply and demand together. So we talked about this question A and B. So let's talk about the solution here. So here we go. So number 1, okay, sorry. So number 1 was people consume more bread. What happened here? 1, 2, and 3. This is a case of demand shift to the right. And what happened here? We have a new equilibrium, which is here. And on that level, if you see, our new price has increased, equilibrium price, and our equilibrium quantity also increased. Everybody, any question?
No.
No.
Okay. Now the second one is the discovery of new cheaper way of milling flour. So this is a case of demand or supply. Does the consumer have anything to do with this new discovery of milling cheaper, flour? No, this is the case of technology. And technology will mostly help suppliers or producers or sellers, right? So this is a case of supply. It means supply shift to the right. When supply shift to the right, we have this point. On this point, we have new price, we have new equilibrium. And what happened here to this market? The price of flour will decrease and the quantity supplied, and the equilibrium quantity means on which quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal. So we have equilibrium quantity which is increased. Sorry. Right? Price decrease, quantity increased. Everyone, any question?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's move to our next chapter, which is chapter 5, elasticity and its application. So up till now, what we have learned, okay, supply increase, like, right? Quantity increase, or the demand shift to the left, demand decrease or increase. But the question is, this information is good for you. You can ask why we are studying, sir, why we are studying this chapter, right? So quantity increase or decrease, I don't still understand. I know that quantity increase and it will be causing like price to decrease, but I'm not interested. We know that quantity increase or decrease, but question is how much increase or decrease, so that I know that what should be my new price or what should be my quantity demanded in terms of actual figures. So that question going to be answered through elasticity, right? So we have now, up till now, what we have learned the concepts that how an event going to increase or decrease your business demand or your business supply whatsoever, right? If you're a consumer, then you can talk about that, what it will happen to my consumption, whether I will consume more or less. Or if you are a business owner, then you know that what will be my demand and what will be my supply, and how much supply and how much demand, that question going to be answered through elasticity. Let's talk about this. So elasticity, so just for a second, in order to understand what is elasticity, imagine to yourself that you are a wheat farmer and it is your only profession. Let me just change the color here. So you'll put more of your maximum effort for making your land productive. Why? Because you know that if you sell more wheat, you have more income. When you have more income, you will be having high standard of life, right? So in order to chase your dream of having a high standard life, you heard that a new research invented a hybrid seed which can increase 20% of your production. Very appealing, right? So what will be your reaction? Your reaction would be whether you should buy this seed, or does this discovery makes your lifestyle good or worse, right? This is the only profession that you grow wheat, and you know that the more I sell the wheat, what happened?